So I'm gonna do this a kind of a little bit like Jace did, where if you have a question, I'm just gonna have you type it in the thing, and I'm just who am? Oh, I am Drailvarr. I am a Paragon Healer. I don't really know what to say aside from who I am. But yeah, my name is Drailvarr, and I really like playing healer. Hi, Talika. I ramble a lot, I'm going to be honest, but the main thing that I'm going to be actually talking about is how healer, specifically how healer works in a team setting, because realistically, no matter what you try and do, Amtgard is a team game and teamwork is overpowered, and healer is, in my opinion, the most versatile of all the classes and can do the most with its toolkit despite its drawbacks, I guess. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the healer chat, and I will get to them in order. And because really I can't just go through the healer level by level. I mean, if a good, like, I can tell you a good list at each level, but realistically, healer is one of those classes where you need to learn it for yourself. You need to figure out what you like about it, what you think will work best, and my preferred playstyle. My preferred playstyle is sort of a midline support where I take it's my most common. I refer to it as Necro Priest, because I take the Necromancer archetype and the Priest archetype, and hold on a sec. I don't know. I take Necromancer, I take Priest, I take Heal, I take Resurrect, and I sort of just mind you, I also take Gummy and whatnot, and I essentially become this sort of midline bastion. Usually I set up about 50 feet away from my spawn. That way I can summon dead from my spawn, or I can reach 50 feet out forward and pull dead players back to me. This way, I essentially become sort of like a secondary respawn, and if I have enough if anyone has enough gummies up, which with Necromancer you can have 5, you can essentially sort of become, you can backlog the opponent's pushes, so that way if you can't get the rest of your team back in time, you can stall the enemy long enough for them to get back with the normal respawn. That said, you can't just, if you're playing midline, you can't just expect to always have what's the word? Shit. Also, pardon my language. You can't just expect to just be there and be unaffected. You're going to have people running at you, which is which gets me into the part about healer equipment. Healer is, of all the casters, with the exception of maybe Bard, healer is, in my opinion, the best class to take equipment with, because of the casters. Mainly because healer has, the biggest thing that healer has over the other classes is healer's sustain. They get mass healing, they get swift, which they can use on their heals. It's just an insanely versatile class, and especially as an insanely sustainable class that can weather pretty much anything you're fighting, so long as you get good at making sure you have a free hand. I hope that answers your question. So long story short, my preferred playstyle is Necro Priest, and then if I had to choose a second one, I would probably say Controller Priest, which is pretty much a frontline crowd control build, with a bunch of resurrects and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, if anyone, and welcome to the new people. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and I will get to them. Okay. Talika asks, one of the hardest things I've come across is playing at a small park where the team games are harder to come by. What can a healer do in those situations where they can't play as much in a team setting and all of those spell synergies as much as a player in a larger park? Is there a way to learn those synergies solo? Yes, there is. One of the biggest spell synergies that you will ever run into is, I don't know what level you guys are, but at lower levels, the big one that you get is hold person, and as far as like solo playing, is going to be hold person and entangle at level 2. So what you do with that is it will 3 currently. Okay, so actually you get one of my favorite combos, which is Ice Ball and Release. This is a beautiful combo that I actually used to get through. When I went down to CG, I used Ice Ball Release combo to get through almost half of an entire fighting company before they finally realized that they needed a warrior with ancestral armor and then Might and Soul, which made me sad, but yes, thank you. So the biggest way to learn those energies is to figure out what's good and what works well together on your own. As a solo healer, you're going to have, because you aren't like as armored as the melee fighters, you're squishy, but you can sustain. Learn to soak hits to your limbs and try and get off swift heals. Or if you're lower level, trade a limb for a kill and then heal that limb. That's a really good synergy that I really enjoy. As far as other synergies, realistically, playing solo in a game as a healer solo is going to be all about making kills for other people easier, and you essentially want to incentivize them not killing you. So all of your control spells, load up on those. Any sort of candy. I would say you can, if you're playing solo, this can work, because you essentially give them the candy as token of in an alliance. But the big thing is the spell synergies that you're going to run into. A lot of them are going to revolve around being up in front of someone, casting at them while they're running you down. How do you coordinate your undead legions? Okay, this is actually a big thing. What Blackjack just asked, how do you coordinate your undead legions in reference to Necromancer and I'm assuming Gummy, because once you get to 5th level, there's virtually no reason to take undead minion versus greater undead minion. Also, I'm sorry, I stutter. Realistically, the point of what I found to be the point of undead minions is to just have people fighting. So it's less of having to coordinate them. I mean, yes, by all means, have your own personal guard of undead minions, but it's realistically going to boil down to you just throwing them at wherever the biggest clump of enemies is. And the best way to do that is to actually coordinate with each one individually. I found where right after you pop them back up, right after you finish the Rise and Fight Agains, say, go over there, point, go fight them, or wait here for a sec, and then when you have a bunch of them, you go, hey, all 3 or 4 or 5 of you, or 2 of you, go kill this one person. Realistically, it will just boil down to your undead minions learning patience and listening to your calls as a healer. Which in a larger battle game, you should probably find a fair amount of people like that, but again, realistically, I would say it's more on your undead minions to actually listen to you and to realize that it's okay for them to die, because undead minions don't actually die. I hope that answers your question. What else? Oh, on that note, something that my Paragon, Sir Anders, taught me that I absolutely love, and what is actually one of the reasons why I love playing healer. Healers are pretty much always tacticians. You have to think strategically. In order, okay. Rayland, I will get to your question in just a moment. So I'm going to finish this and then go to that, because that is a very good question. You always have to think strategically, and this will actually go perfectly with Rayland's question. Because whether you're playing midline, backline, frontline, you always have to coordinate. You have the biggest view of the battlefield, because you have to. You have to know who on your team is down. You have to know who on the enemy team is down, who you can, what the objectives are, where the objectives are situated in relation to both bases or both respawns. And so Raylan asks, and this might seem like a lot, but as Raylan asks, in a kingdom battle setting, what do you prioritize? What is your focus? It depends on the type of healer you are playing. If you are playing like a frontline controller priest, where you have a bunch of control spells, you have priest, and you're swift rezzing your people, you've got like a medium shield and a flail or something for equipment. At that point, you should be focusing. You should be getting people to glom around you and like surround you, and then target. And then try and get them to target specific points, specific weak points, because as having a healer with you, if you're a controller priest, you should be focusing objectives, because it doesn't matter how many kills you get unless the objective is killing. The objective is what's going to win you the game. If you're a midline priest, you should focus on coordinating and relaying information to the fighters, specifically calling out what their mid and backline are doing, because you're in the perfect spot to go, hey, I can see past their front line. I can see that they have a group of I can see they have 3 archers that are only guarded by two shieldmen. Hey, you 2 monks, come here. I've got a special job for you. Go focus them. And it's really, healer is extremely situational, and what you're going to focus on each battle game for a midline healer is going to vary from battle game to battle game, and just it becomes a matter of reading the flow of battle. For a backline healer, also commonly known as a resbot, which, don't get me wrong, resbots are great. I love resbots. I love resbotting. It keeps me. It means I don't get to die, and I don't like dying. That's a joke. I'm bad at jokes. So anyway, as a backline, your job to prioritize and focus as a backline healer, in my opinion, is going to be resbotting and making sure people are up on candy. One of my favorite things to do that I've seen, well, I haven't done it, but one of my favorite things that I've seen done is when a healer teams up with another healer who's resbotting, and that other healer takes Warder and then nothing except Blessing Against Wounds, and just gets a crap ton of people. And every time someone pops up, they go, "Hey, do you want an enchantment? Sure, here, Blessing Against Wounds. Go ignore the first thing that hits you," or various other things. So really that I hope that answers your question. Feel free to ask. Feel free to clarify if I didn't. Sefton, you're welcome for doing the talk. What is your favorite class to use Greater Undead Minion on, and why? Okay, so Greater Undead Minion is, in my opinion, one of the most... I'm going to be honest. It is an extremely overrated spell that a lot of people don't know how it actually works. My favorite class to use Greater Undead Minion on, quite simply, and this may surprise a lot of you, is actually Scouts. Now, the reason why I love putting it on Scouts, especially Scouts with like only 1 or 2 points of armor in a few locations, is because they are so at higher levels they get evolution, so they can automatically stack Greater Undead Minion with something else, like Greater Undead Minion with Attuned and other stuff, but they also have a little bit more durability than, say, putting it on a monk. The main reason why you would want to put it on a monk is so that you don't have to worry about mending the monk's armor, because monks don't get armor. But other than that, the biggest problem is that Scouts at lower levels, they're more utility. So they can't activate their abilities, but they still get a crap ton of stuff. Other than that, something that actually is really that's more smart to put them on are peasants. Peasants make great undead minions. Why? Because they're expendable, and they don't wear armor, and they don't have to. Yeah, undead peasants. It's great. But if you're playing peasant in a class game, I'm sorry, but people playing peasant makes me sad. I'm gonna be honest about that. What are Kalnor? Sorry if I butcher your names. What are healers' greatest weakness? Healers' greatest weakness is that they're squishy. More than once, I have seen a healer falter to the fact that they can't wear armor, and a single good wrap shot will just end them. And because a single good wrap shot, poke them in the back, or get through their guard, hit them in the front. If you can hit a healer's torso, they are out of the game until they respawn. And a healer that is out of the game is useless. Mind you, all classes are useless, but a healer most so, because healers, like I was saying before, healers are tacticians. They are sustain batteries. Whereas, like, we talk about like battery bards and whatnot, healers are the life battery of any sort of team, because healers heal. So a healer's greatest weakness is that they are squishy. So the best way to counter a healer is actually to, assuming that the healer has a shield, just somehow get rid of their shield and then poke them in the chest. Best way to deal with healers. The best way for healers to overcome that is is just soak it to a limb and then heal the limb. Just soak that shot to a limb and then heal the limb. I guess the cough assassin. Yes. Assassins are assassin. In my opinion, okay. So assassins are one of two hard counters to healer, in my opinion. Mainly because they get to the only way a healer is going to have some way to deal with an assassin is if they're getting candy from a druid or another healer. That's it. Maybe a scout, maybe a paladin, but no, scouts can't give enchantments. But yeah, no, the only way if you have poison up and you just go like the healer. That's all you need to do as an assassin is poison your weapon, go leg the healer. Because even a shield healer, leg the shieldman. That said, if you can, I would always recommend taking, especially if there's another healer on your team, or if you have to choose, take devote 1 or 2 points to Blessing Against Wounds on your list. Trust me, someone can use it. Blessing Against Wounds is, in my opinion, the most underrated spell in the entirety of Amtgard. Here's what it says, literally verbatim, for Blessing Against Wounds. Effect. Resistant to wounds. Does not count toward a player's enchantment limit. Give me a good reason why I should not take that on a list. Plus, for healers, it's per life. I mean, aside from unless you're running Necromancer or something. But Blessing Against Wounds is a first level spell that costs the first level enchantment that costs 1 point that you can just go, hey, you, put on this white strip. Ignore the next thing that wounds you. Okay, what if it's wounding? Ignore the next thing that wounds you. Okay, what if it's a poisoned weapon? Cool. Ignore it. The poison is still expended. Now, I'm pretty sure that's how that works. Because, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Because, let me just triple check that, because the next wound dealt by the bearer in melee, yeah. So that's a huge thing. Yep, next wound dealt. So in melee, yes. So, and I believe this was clarified. The wound would technically be dealt. So poison is expended. But you are resistant to wounds. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. Again, I don't. But that can easily be checked. On the rules clarification page. At least that's what I've been told that that's how that works. Pretty sure. Please don't go around saying well, actually you can say that I said that. I have no problem being wrong. Because if I am wrong, that means I learned something. And that's another thing about healers, is you always have to be learning things. Even as a Paragon, I will admit that I do not know everything. I learned something new basically every day. Or at least I try to. And when it comes to coup de grace, I don't know what you're trying to say about coup de grace. I know, let's see. Super good. But against healer. Yes and no. Well, actually, no, yeah. Because even if the healer heals itself, even if the healer heals themselves, that they still die. However, actually, no, not even that. As long as you're within range. Yes, yes. Always stay in range of healers. Another thing. Something that a lot of people don't realize, and I will be talking about this on how to counter healers. If a healer starts casting anything at you, anything at all, well, this goes for most casters. If anyone starts casting anything at you ever, don't try and run away. Run at them. Stab them. Because guess what? If you stab them, they die. If they die, no coup de grace. Even if you're in range. Yeah. Yes. If you're in range, even if you'll die. Yes. But no matter what, try and get to that. If someone tries to start casting something at you, at least try to get to them, which is why you should, as a healer, you should always have at least a dagger on you. Because eventually you're gonna get into a spot where you can't use your you're gonna get into a spot where your spells will not help you. Because Amtgard is a sword and sorcery game, not just a sorcery game. You need that's actually a very good point to make about healers. Sorry if this is just going tangent into tangent into tangent into tangent. Healers, especially frontline and midline healers, you need to devote at least a couple spell points towards your equipment. At first level, you get small shield and a short weapon, which is huge. I believe you are the. Let me just double check this just so I. Yes, you are the only caster that gets a shield and a sword at level 1. The only caster class. Take them. Even if you're lit, and this is also assuming you get looked the part. Hi Mirren, how are you? We actually just finished talking about it. We already talked about archers. It was great. Archers are great against healers. Poke them in the stomach. Poke them in the stomach from way over there. But yeah, so as I was saying, at first level, healers get it does cost 5 points, but if you have 6 points and you're just starting out healer, short weapon, shield, heal. Realistic, and that right there is a very solid first level list. Yeah, healers get a small shield, which costs 2 points, and you can only have 1. They get a short sword, which costs 3 points, and you can have a max of 2. But yeah, take them. They get the most equipment the fastest out of all of the healers, out of all of the casters, because trust me, a healer with even if all you have is a short sword, a small shield, and heal, congrats. You have an unlimited ability and a pokey bit and a thing to defend yourself. In Amtgard, at first level, that is huge. And realistically, you don't have to take equipment to be a good healer. There are plenty of healers that don't. But if I could tell you the amount of times I've seen an assassin get into the back line and just decimate a bunch of unarmed healers, only to be stopped by that one healer who took a sword and board, who went sword and board, I've seen that happen more times than I can count. Even I've seen even if you don't buy the equipment for the spells, take a dagger with you onto the field, because in a pinch, a dagger is worse than nothing. You can literally throw yourself onto their sword, and if you get that killing blow, congrats, you just cleared the back line. Yes, you're dead, but that gets into we'll get into that later of Oh, hey, I think we got a new person. Sweet. Also, if there are any, if anyone has a question that I've answered already, I will, I'll briefly touch on it. From resistant to wounds, does not receive the next wound that would be otherwise inflicted. Will not be applied. Thanks. Okay, I was wrong. So yes, I was wrong about that. However, it is extremely annoying for assassins when they go, wounds kill, boop, and you go immune. Well, you go resistant. I don't take it. This was sent to me, not my personal search. Sweet. Yes, that is very good to know. I mean, realistically, if an assassin comes up to you and hits you, just hit them back. Especially if you know you have blessing. If you have blessing up, soak the hit, stab it, and then stab the assassin. If they're wearing armor, stab them a bunch. Hopefully before they stab you again. But yes. So I was wrong about that. I was wrong. The poison would not... Okay. So the poison would still be active. Again, if any of our newcomers have any questions, just write them in the healer chat. I'm not going through every single level, simply because healers have a lot. But I will touch on some of my favorite spells from healer, starting at level 1. So, Release. Release is a hugely useful spell. A lot of people don't realize how useful it actually is. Because actually no. No, heal is, I mean, it's great, and I like heal because it makes me not die. But as far as favorites go, well, as far as favorites go from first level, I would say my two favorites would have to be Release and Blessing Against Wounds. Blessing Against Wounds for the reasons I've already gone over of how you get to ignore a wound, which is huge in Amtgard, and it's per life. Release because for the low cost of 1 magic point, Mirren. Actually, no, this brings up a good point. Cancel is extremely useful, and you should always take Cancel on your list. Why? Because it's 0 to cast. And I actually have a very, very recent story about how Cancel saved my life in a Kill Your Killer game. So, long story short, I had an enchantment on me that I had put on myself. I had Mass Healing up. I had Circle of Protection on my list, but I couldn't use it because Circle of Protection is an enchantment, so is Mass Healing. 3 people decided to run me down because at my park, that's what happens. So what I did was I very, very, very quickly canceled the Mass Healing and then cast Circle of Protection on myself. And got and basically bought myself enough time to, I believe I was also armed at the time, so I was able to just straight up heal myself, or so. I forget what happened specifically, but it was definitely one of those cases where I needed to not be in a place where they could hurt me, because even if I had like Mass Healing up or something, it was still like a fight. Like it was going to be like 2, 3, or 4 on 1, which I would rather lose the per refresh in a kill your killer game. I would rather lose the Mass Healing and slap on the Circle of Protection, charge the EOP, and then but another good point. Circle of Protection. one of the weirdest abilities in the game, with with a bunch of stipulations. Also, feel free to please don't just not ask questions just because I'm talking. I promise I will get to your questions as soon as I possibly can, most likely when I finish my current train of thought. So, Circle of Protection. Circle of Protection is one of the most interesting abilities in the entire game, in my opinion. Useful? Question mark, but because its use, I would put its use on par with a wizard's ward self. It's great. Situationally, it is extremely useful. Most of the time, I'm sorry, but Circle of Protection is not really going to be of use, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it's a great spell. And you can't actually kill your killer, though. I am well aware of the... yes, you can. Horizon is right. If you use COP and then take someone else into COP with you, they can't be targeted, and the death spell fizzles. But that's also a once per refresh charge 10 comparatively. Once per refresh charge 10, which, I mean, great. You canceled the death magic targeting them. Just wait for them to die and greater release and res them. Sure. Oh, so yes. Thank you. So for the for those of you who can't so Blackjack said you can't actually kill your killer, though, which is what I said to I know. And Horizon then said COP is wonderful. You can use it to cancel death magic targeting another player. Which is totally true. Okay. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, I might as well continue my original thought of favorite spells. At second level, my top two favorite spells would probably have to be Hold Person and Sever Spirit. How do you feel about? Okay, how do I feel about Hinged? I have a very love-hate relationship with the Hinged weapon class. Don't get me wrong, it's great. Hinged weapons have an inherent benefit over swords, because they basically ignore shields. You can use them to wrap around shields a lot easier than a sword. However, you can still wrap around a shield with a sword. However, it's just easier to do with a hinged. The main reason why I personally don't like hinged weapons is because it's 3 points at second level, which, don't get me wrong, isn't bad. It's not like druids where they have to spend, what is it, 5 fifth level points to get? No, 5. Oh, where is? Yeah, 5 fifth level points to get a great weapon. Hinged weapons are great. Hinged weapons are great, and if you want to use them, by all means use them. I personally, it's just, hinged weapons are, I personally don't like them. is basically what I'm getting at. Is personally, I don't like them. However, they are really good at, especially getting around shields. I don't mind. Talika says, I don't mind it now that I'm at a higher level. I find they are useful for wrap around when bigger fighters come at me, but it's personal opinion. That and people sometimes underestimate you. This is true. This is true. I can't tell you the amount of times I've looked at someone with a flail and gone, yeah, you have a flail. Because it probably has to do with when I first started playing Amtgard. I heard a saying that was told to me by one of the older Amtgarders, and it was that flail is Elvish for ain't no good with a stick. But that said, flails do something that a lot of people forget about flails. If you shoulder your flail and it whips around and hits you in the back, congrats, you just killed yourself. A lot of people don't take those hits. A lot of people don't really care about those hits. But technically speaking, it was a valid shot. That's another reason why I don't like flails, because I feel like I would, simply because I'm not used to them, I would just kill myself all the time with them, because I'm so used to taking my sword and just whipping it into guard that my flail would just whip around my back. That's why you don't throw it back, lol. Well, you just don't have that problem with a sword, you know? So, yes. You have... But yes, that's another reason why I don't like flails, is because I see a lot of people use them improperly, and when I say use them improperly, I mean flails react at half the speed of a short. If the opponent has armor, not so good. Very true, Horizon. Horizon just said, also flails react at half the speed of a short. If your opponent has armor, not so good. This is... I know, Miran. And Miran just said, but I'm also awful with the sword. So, and both of these are actually intertwined. Flails, yes, have a slower reaction time and are good at getting around shields. So unarmored targets with shields, use flails against them. Trust me, they'll hate you. As flails are really good at countering healers, especially healers with medium shields. And Miran, even if you are awful with a sword, it literally only takes practice. And I know a lot of people will say that to you, but even if you're awful with a sword, I mean, I hit... no, I mean, oh, I meant I'll hit myself in the back with it. Haha. That was not me ha-haing at you, Miran. That was me beginning to read Horizon's comment. So, if you're playing healer and you expect at any point to possibly even maybe be in combat in melee, a short is better than nothing. And the big thing that a lot of people need to remember is even if you are terrible with a sword, even if you have if you are at the absolute bottom rung and a sword knight is walking up to you, if they're not wearing armor, all you need is one lucky shot. And if if the lowest skill person on the field can, for lack of a better term, sacrifice themselves to take out a sword knight playing monk with a gummy on him, or a sword knight playing monk with a golem stack, that is huge. And mind you, if a sword knight gets into your back line, where a lot of healers that don't have a lot of equipment are, yes, as Miran said, a level 0 peasant can still roll a crit. You can always get lucky. And having the option of getting lucky is better than having no chance at all. But yes. So, spells. Second level favorites. Hold Person and Sever Spirit. Okay. Hold Person is extremely useful. There's a reason why it is across multiple gaming gaming formats, games, systems, what have you. No matter where you go in a gaming format, there is some sort of crowd control, you stop moving. Somewhere in there. In D&D, you have Hold Person. In Amtgard, you have Hold Person. In Diablo, you have stuns. In Overwatch, you have stun effects. Just gotta remember that monks... Talika just noted that, yes, monks and barbars are not affected. However, you can still half-cast at them, and sometimes that is enough. And by what I mean by half-casting is you start saying the incantation, and you say all but like the last line or the last half of the line, and that way you get the effect that, mind you, when half-casting, it's really best to half-cast only if they're trying to run away from you. If, like I said earlier, if someone starts casting at you, try to get to them and try to kill them. Because the amount of times that I've tried to run away from people when I didn't hear that they extended the spell. Crickets. But yes, because no matter what, even if they extended the spell, if you charge them while they're casting at you, you can either get them to stutter, you can get them to take a step, which breaks the incant, you can get them to stutter, which breaks the incant, you can get them to just turn and run, which breaks the incant, no matter what, and on the off chance they get it off before you reach them, congrats, either way, the spell would have taken effect at that point. So, either way, you charge people when they cast at you. But even still, Hold Person is an amazing spell. The amount, I just got home from Feast of Fools, and the amount of times I looked at the warriors that were coming around in full plate and just pointed at them and said, "Hey, I command thee to stop, I command thee to stop, I command thee to stop." And they looked at me and went, and just did that thing with their face where they just looked at me and said, "I hate you," without saying I hate you. It's 1 point, once per life chargeable. So you quickly say the charge and can't, and then you just sort of go, "Hey!" You're stuck there for 30 seconds. Which doesn't really work when... against a monk or a barbarian, yeah, that won't work, but monks are essentially the anti-caster class, and the only downside is that they are one of the few classes squishier than healer. And if a barbarian comes at you, if you're gonna try and fight him, him or her, if a barbarian comes at you and you're gonna try and fight them, ice balls do not affect barbarians. But ice balls are extremely great because... Oh, actually, note about spell balls. Note about spell balls that is very important. Aim for the legs. No matter what, if you are throwing a spell ball, aim for their legs. Now, you may be thinking, why? Wouldn't I want to aim for a bigger target? Yes and no. yes, you would want to if you know they can't block it, but especially against monks. Monks get magic ball block at 6th level, which means that if the ice ball so much as grazes their hand or sword, it is nullified. Aim for their legs, so they have to literally drop their guard down a foot or two if they want to try and block it. And if not, congrats, you just iceballed a monk. And you can walk around behind them, take an open hand, unless they use pole, or staff. At that point, if a monk comes at you with a great weapon, and unless you have a medium shield, okay, fair enough. If a monk comes at you with a great weapon, just charge them. Just try and soak a hit, get inside their pole arm, and then just stab them repeatedly. And that might be... You'll notice a lot of my answer to... hashtag... Tenumbrion just said, hashtag still can hear. Yes, Tenumbrion, I know you can. Please, and am I butchering your name? I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. But yes, Tenebrion. Great. Tenebrion. Yes, Tenebrion. If a monk comes at you with a pole, realistically, if anyone comes at you with a pole, just close on them. Because if you close on them, they have one choice: backpedal or die. Because, well, backpedal, switch weapons, or die. Either way, no matter what they choose, you can shove or stun the barbar. Yes, you can. And so Blackjack just said that you can stun or shove a barbar. Yes, you can. However, stun is 6th level per refresh. I don't know what's on my list, unless it's like a game where, yeah, I want to stun people. Because abeyance is good. Abeyance is subdual. You cannot abeyance a barbar. Which actually, very important thing to note. About spells in Amtgard. So, the way spells are worded is extremely important in Amtgard, because each spell, no matter what, follows the same rules. It has a school keyword and an effect keyword. For example, hold person. I command thee to stop. Command is the keyword noting that it's of the command school, and stop is the keyword that denotes that it inflicts the stopped effect. So it is a command school. So the moment someone starts casting hold person at you, you immediately know they are casting a command school spell that stops me. Which is a great way to help remember schools of magic and like what doesn't work on certain people. So anything with strength in the incantation is subdual school. Anything with command in the incantation is command school. Death is death. Flame or fire is flame. Power is sorcery. Bless. Bless, protect, and Bless, Protect, and Enchant are all protection, I believe. Yes. Yes. No, Bless and Protect are the two protection keywords. However, again, I can just go on about that, and with different examples. But if you learn the keywords, you'll be a lot better at making split-second decisions about, hey, barbarians, immune to command and subdual. Okay, so by the power of white light, barbarian in black, by the power of white light I stun thee, etc. And you'll know immediately what works and what doesn't work. Also, for countering healer, also learning this is extremely important because you can go, because a first level barbarian who's running at the Paragon Healer, who tries to half cast a hold person at them, they go, oh wait, they said command. I'm immune to that. I'm immune to anything with command in the incantation, which is the general rule. There are, I think, like 1 or 2 exceptions, but and that's just because of weird power school, weird sorcery school shenanigans that work. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about stuff. So, Sever Spirit. Sever Spirit is an amazing spell. It is a beautiful spell that targets dead players. It is really, really, really rare in Amtgard to have spells that specifically target dead players. So, what Sever Spirit does, may only target dead players. Player is cursed. Any enchantments on the player are removed. This is huge. And despite what all the druids say down in CG, Crystal Groves, got a druid stack. So if a druid stacks someone with Golem, which is the main use for this, Sever Spirit, despite being Spirit School, will strip a Golem. Now you may be thinking, but Golem makes them cursed. How will that? Well, how comes a Spirit School can affect someone who's cursed? Very simple. Though their enchantments are removed upon respawn, not death. However, they become inactive during death. So, the cursed state inflicted by Golem is tied. Yes, Blackjack is tied to the enchantment, which becomes inactive because the person is not afflicted by the state. The state is applied via the enchantment. So the enchantment becomes the enchantment becomes inactive. The cursed state goes away. You can Sever Spirit the Golem, strip their Golem stack off them, and have them go whine and cry to their druid. Because, and I'm going to be honest, this is one of the things that you need to be adamant about, because I literally went down to CG one time and had a Paragon Druid look me in the face and say, if you Sever Spirit my Golem, I will tell them not to take it. Because you cannot do that. And I looked at them and said, cool, if you do that, I will tell a Reeve and get you kicked off the field. Because that is a huge thing. That a lot of people, especially druids I've found, especially power-hungry druids, do not like. But also, Sever Spirit costs 1 point, and you get it once per life, charge 3. Even if it's just like a monk with stone skin or something, if you see a dead player within your range, Sever Spirit them. Because even if you don't, congrats, they are now cursed. They cannot be rezzed except by greater res or greater release than normal resurrect. Which brings me to my next point. To my next big thing that I want to talk about that I completely forgot that I wanted to talk about. Res botting. They can't be steel lifed. Yes, very important. Steel life essence doesn't work on cursed people. So if you sever spirit them, they cannot be steel lifed. But okay, so res botting. This is one of the defaults that I think a lot of healers get discouraged at level 3, around level 3, because especially in the larger battle games, people look at they see that you have a red sash and they go, hey, especially older people in the game, I'm sorry if anyone here has been in for a while, if a lot of people, you walk into a huge battlefield, especially ones with long respawns, and and everyone goes, hey, you have res on you, right? Which is a combination of summon dead and resurrect. A lot of people will go, hey, you belong by the respawn resbotting. Don't listen to them. Resbot is an amazing thing to have built into your list. It's not necessary. I mean, yeah, it's great. If you can, take resurrect. Resurrect is great because you literally get to resurrect someone. But don't listen to people telling you what to do as a healer. Yes, res bots break elimination games. So if you have a life... So, Carabanog. Carabanog is great because we're known for exactly 2 things. Needed a CFT real bad, BOD. BOTD? Needed... Yes! Oh man, I want to go to Battle of the Den so bad. I want to go to Battle of the Den so bad. 6 hours non-stop, capture the flag. It's on my to-do list. It is on my to-do list. But yes, in any sort of shatter game, res bots break the game, especially good red bots. Good res bots. I'm sorry, people are talking, distracting me. I love you too, darling. So what essentially happens with res botting? Summon is, first you have the big thing, resurrect. Now how resurrect works is very simple. If they don't move from where they died, you can cast resurrect on them and bring them back to life. And specifically, I believe it states that you heal, it returns them to life with all wounds healed, I believe. Yes, resurrect. Target dead players return to life. Non-persistent enchantments on the player are removed before the player returns to life. Any wounds on the player are healed. Which is something very important to note. Non-persistent enchantments are removed. This is big. Because if you have someone who's just like, I died, can you help me? Just look at them and go, do you have enchantments that you want to keep? Yeah. Are they persistent? No. Are you okay with losing them? I mean, don't get me wrong. Bringing someone back in the middle of a team fight is huge. But you do have to... There is a matter of you have to know what you're getting yourself into. The... 90 minutes. Okay. Yeah, I will. So in which case, I'm actually just gonna jump forward a little bit. In my to-do list. And that are now let's just quickly talk about the archetypes, which are it's really easy to do. The 3 archetypes that healers get are Warder, Priest, and Necromancer. Necromancer is a great archetype, especially for midlines. The Warder is really good if you want to be in like a backline and then Priest pairs really well with either of them. Because the big thing that you have to remember is you are not bound to one archetype. You can take Necromancer and Priest. You can take Warder and Priest. You can't really take Necromancer and Warder simply for the limitations on both of them. And that Necromancer, you can't take anything from the Protection School. Well, but all of your death magic spells become charged once per life charge 3, I believe. And then Warder says you can't take sorry, pardon my stuttering. You can't take Death, Command, or Subdual, but all your Protection School is doubled. So you really can't take them together and have them synergize well. But Priest synergizes well with both of them, simply because it makes all of your meta magics charge 3. But you can only use them on Spirit School, so it's a little bit of a weird thing. Warder is really good if you run like a candy build. Just make sure that you have a lot of per life enchantments. Priest is really good because it's Priest, and you can charge your meta magics, which being able to augment your spells is really good. And then Necromancer is my favorite because it's Necromancer. The other big thing I want to talk about at 6th level is mass healing. I once had someone walk up to me and go, I don't take mass healing because mass healing is useless. And I looked at them and I said, so 5 free insta-heals that you don't need a free hand to cast is useless. Because that's what essentially mass healing is. It is, you enchant yourself with it. I like to persistent it. And you get 5 strips, and you can just go, I grant the healing while you're touching someone, which you can use on yourself. So, frontline healers, persistent mass healing on yourself. Because, let's say you're fighting someone, you burn through 3 of them in that fight, but you burn through 2 of them and you die. When you come back, because it's persistent, you will start that life with 3 uses of mass healing on that mass healing. It doesn't refill, but it's still really, really good. I mean, I could go on and on for hours about healer. Oh, something very important that I want to talk about. That's very important that I haven't talked about yet. Undead minion and greater undead minion, and how they interact, and how they work. Specifically, because a lot of people have this misconception that people under the effects of greater undead minion and undead minion die. They don't. They instead become insubstantial when they would normally die. A lot of people will say that they do die. It still counts for triggering effects such as like Troll's Blood, Blood and Thunder, kill triggers, whatnot. It still counts for that, but you have to make sure that they know that they don't die. Because if they call themselves dead, then they do die and the enchantment is removed when they respawn. They instead become insubstantial and must move to you as quickly as possible. And then at that point, they cannot move more than 10 feet from you and may not speak. So it's just it irks me that a lot of people think that greater undead minions die. They don't. However, that does, because they are insubstantial and not dead, they can be tracked out, they can be dimensional rifted, but at that point, just have them come back to you and recast Greater Undead Minion. Because you can target dead cursed players with Undead Minion and Greater Undead Minion. I think that's everything I specifically wanted to talk about. Does anyone have any questions at all? Any of our new people, or are people just listening? Healer. Okay, so at this point, I think I'll just sort of wrap up. Healer in general. Healer is a very, very versatile class. It's useful pretty much anywhere on the battlefield. At lower levels, it gets a lot of equipment. At higher levels, it's a lot of really great utility. You can do so much with a healer's list. You can run control, you can run various forms of resbot, you can run various forms of support. You can run support builds that are all about keeping your team alive with candy. You can run support builds that are all about just having people die and then come back as quickly as possible. It's really a really versatile class. However, it can be very easy to get bogged down in it, because there's a lot of, when people hear the word healer, they think, oh, you're standing in the back healing us and making sure the front line does their job. You don't have to be limited to that. You can instead pick up a medium shield, pick up a flail, load up on a crap ton of control spells, run at the enemy, and if you get good at popping an open hand with your shield, you can be devastating and just go, hey, you don't get to move. No, you don't get to move. Oh, ice ball. Oh, entangle. Cool, half your team is crowd controlled. My team can work on the half that I can't. Or you could run a pure backline, sits in the back by the things, chaining summon dead and resurrect until the cows come home with enchantments and whatnot. Realistically, healer is whatever you want it to be. And Horizon just said, healer is amazing. You can wreck a field, you can overwhelm the enemy, you can make your team almost unkillable. You can even just focus on protecting yourself and swift healing / mass healing yourself as you cut through others. Yes, healers are not just healers. Healers are frontline fighters. Healers are whatever you want to be. They are literally, healers are your oyster. Go find the pearl that makes you happy, and then go on and kill them. Kill the enemy, because you can as a healer, because you get a short sword at level 1. But really what healer boils down to is you figuring out what you're good at, and then going, I like doing X, and focusing on X, and getting good at X. And because odds are, no matter what you're interested in as far as roles, you can do it with healer. And that, it's really just figuring it out for yourself. I can't tell you this build is the best. I can't tell you this build will always be good, because it won't. You're gonna, as you're leveling up healer, you will come out with subpar lists, not realizing what the game was entirely, or realizing that you're on a team with a bunch of barbarians and your warder list is completely useless. but you can still res bot them. So healer is whatever you want it to be. And that it is, in my opinion, the most versatile, and as such, one of the most powerful classes in Amtgard. I think that's pretty much all I have to say on it. If anyone has any last-minute questions, feel free to type them in real quick. Going once, going twice. Oh, Telika's typing. Oh. Telika and Raylan are typing. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit over here and wait for them to classify. How do you think healer balances? Against Bard, I would say they're pretty even. Because bards have almost as much versatility as healers do, but their downfall is that they don't have any spell balls and like next to no actual sustain. Against druids, healers are against druids, specifically druids. It really depends on the druid. If a druid is running Avatar of Nature with Ranger Avatar of Nature, the 9 times out of 10 that druid is gonna wreck the healer simply because of just simply because they can. If it's a summoner druid, the healer should. If it's a summoner druid and they're coming face to face with a healer, something is very, very wrong for the druid and very, very right for the healer. Against other healers, I would say they balance out. I would say healer is actually rather strong against other healers. So in that case, it would sort of balance out. But simply because they're healers, so I don't. Against wizards, I would have to say that again, wizards have more kill potential, whereas healers have more utility potential. And what changes am I looking forward to? What changes would I make for healer in V9? I would rework Greater Heal, and I hope Greater Heal gets a rework. Right now, it is a 4th level. No, right now it's where is it? Greater Heal, 4th level, once per life spell that just heals cursed. So heals through cursed and heals all wounds, provided the player is alive. But a player can't have more than 2 wounds if they're still alive. I guess. Personally, I would hope that Greater Heal becomes a ranged heal because I would really want it to be that. I would want it to be. I would say probably. I could say I would want it to be ranged. I would prefer verbal over spell ball. But if they were to like say 4th level, once per life, but up the cost to 3 points, spell ball healing would be cool. But yeah, I really hope Greater Heal gets reworked because right now it's just sort of sitting there next to least effective spell in my opinion. Greater Heal, hands down, Greater Heal. But yeah. The other one big change that I hope the healers get in V9, I hope they get more per life enchantments. I would actually start playing Warder if that happened. Right now they get 2, I believe. They get Blessing Against Wounds and Adaptive Blessing. double checking. Yeah, those are the only two per life enchantments they get. But yeah. Anyway. So it's probably a balancing reason why there isn't more. It is for wizards. Dispel magic is once per life charge 3 for wizards. And so yeah. Once per refresh, it's still a charge 3, which is inherently good against it. You can charge it as a wizard, which means that you can throw out more dispelled magics than a healer can throw out enchantment. So those are the two things. A range that I'm looking for or would want to see in V9 is a ranged heal and a ranged heal and more per life enchantments. But yeah. No one else has any other questions? I don't really have anything else to say. I think I've covered everything. If I haven't covered anything that anyone wants to talk about or touch upon, because actually, someone who's in my room just asked me a very important question. Favorite team up, favorite class team up. I would say healer. I would actually say healer and monk. Either healer and monk or healer and scout, because they complement each other very well. I would actually say more healer and scout than healer and monk, because they just work together. Those two I feel would work together very well. Healer gets a lot of nice enchantments that would work on the scout, and scout can wear armor and use shield and bow, and they're just made for each other in heaven, I guess. But yeah. So yeah. Thanks for everyone who showed up. What would be your master plan as a necromancer? Are we talking in-game? Are we talking like roleplay? Or are we talking about on the battlefield? Roleplay. Drailvarr is actually currently, so no one actually knows this in-game, except for a couple people. Drailvarr is currently hoarding magical items of power and is hoping to at some point become a and actually the reason why he was so fricked up that one time on the Raketh was because he essentially purified one of the arcane moonstone shards that he has. He ground it up, purified it into a liquid, and then drank it, and basically supercharged himself. But then the coming down off that high was not fun. So it took a lot out of him. But yeah. Drailvarr's end goal is actually Drailvarr's end goal is to sort of blur the worlds, and I have to leave some stuff, but there are reasons, and hopefully someday it will come to pass. Be very interesting.